Welcome to the Embodied Business Show. You are with me, your host, Case Warwick. Today, I'm super excited to be talking about this particular topic. This episode is going to be super short, super sharp, and something that I think every single business owner needs to hear. Now, if you are in the coaching industry, if you are in any kind of space where you're sitting there and you're like, I just want to charge more, here's what I want you to know. You actually can. It doesn't need to be a big story. And here's what we're going to dive into. Embodied business. There's a couple of things that can happen behind all of this, these stories, these ways in which we're being. And I'm going to dive straight in to one of the biggest revelations, whatever that word is. I'm going to dive into this particular thing because I remember years ago I was coached by Grant Cardone and I'm sitting on a call with his sales manager. And at the time I had just looked at moving into high ticket coaching offerings. And for those of you who are in the coaching space, who are in this world of learning to lead with soul-led entrepreneurship, this one's going to really, really hit home because I was sitting there and he had just shared a story about how he paid a personal trainer $100,000 to actually train him for a year. And this came about because the trainer really understood his story. He really understood where he was at. He was an overweight guy. And he said to him, look, how much is this costing you a year? And he's like, easily like a couple $100,000, if not $1 million. And the personal trainer was like, okay, well, what would you be willing to pay for a problem like this to be solved? He's like, I'd pay $100,000. He's like, great, it's $100,000 to work with. In that moment, I realized the position of value proposition. For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about here is perceived value can only come from that who actually gives your service value. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I've experienced just in the last 6 months personally myself that really opened my eyes even more. And over the years, I was a personal trainer in my previous life. So that $100,000 experience was something where I was like, oh my God, that is fucking crazy. That's nuts to spend $100,000 on personal training. However, when I heard it, I was happy with my body. I had just had a baby. I was feeling healthy. I was feeling really, really good. Now, fast forward to literally last month in my life, I dropped 11.5K on working with a health coach. Now, the reason why I share this, like I haven't only just started with them literally this week. And the reason why I share this is because I didn't understand the value proposition fully. Like I was teaching it, I was applying it, I was learning it, and I got it for other areas in my business. But I didn't understand it until I started dropping that amount of money in my own business. And I'm sitting here and I was like, oh, that was one of those moments where, a couple years ago, I was like, oh yeah, it's expensive to put $1,000 in your house a month or whatever for personal training. I was thinking that was a lot. But then when I did this, it was just a no-brainer for me. I was like, yep, cool, let's do it. And it was because the value was now higher in my world. It was a perceived value that was now higher. It was more valuable to me. So therefore I was willing to pay it. If that had been like a person who was happy with their body, happy with their weight, happy with everything that they were doing, wouldn't have affected them. They wouldn't have even bought it, right? Give you another example. Years back, I had someone who wanted to rebuild my website, rebuild all my courses, and they wanted to charge me $2,000 for that. And when they gave me the pitch, I was like, no, that's too expensive. I'm not paying that because I knew I could do it myself. I didn't have a super busy schedule at the time. And I really just didn't know what I was in for in business, right? Like I didn't understand what it would take to build a really, really successful business. Now, fast forward to now, literally a couple months back, I'm sitting here, I've got courses built, I've got the landing pages built, I've got all the things built, but I was like, one of my particular courses, I was like, I want to fine tune that. That was Embodied Business, right? We've got a library in behind Embodied Business that takes people from 0 to multiple 6 figures. And I was like, I want to revamp this. I want to give it something so potent, so juicy, so amazing that people are just like, oh, yes. And so I was like, you know what? I need someone who's going to help me. Lo and behold, the universe is like, delivers me a client. So as someone who came to me to help build her business, she's like, this is what I was doing. And I was like, yeah, of course it is. Now that you've been a student, you understand it. Let's go deeper. You get to rebuild it for me. So I paid her $11,500. Seems to be a really great rate for US conversion, right? So it was $7.5 USD to go in and rebuild this entire course. Now, the reason why this is so important is because that wasn't just the website. It was literally one course. Whereas prior to this, the guy had quoted $2,000 for multiple courses and a website. At the time, I didn't value it. Now that I'm making multiple six figures and I understand that this is the bread and butter of my business, of course, it's more valuable to me because I know what it's already created. And if we get to make it better, it only gets to be better. So of course, I'm willing to invest in that. Investment is everything, right? And for so many people, they're not willing to look at what is a person willing to invest for that result. And they're focused on the people who won't spend the money. For every person who won't spend the money, I promise you there is a person who will. I remember even back to when I first started coaching, my first ever offering was $1,000, right? I was like coaching people for like 3 months for $1,000. And that's just not even possible in my world anymore, right? It's absolutely not possible. However, at the time, I was nervous to share that. I was like, oh my God, this is so scary, like to be able to do that. And when I did it, when I first had my first client sign up for $1,000, I couldn't believe my eyes that someone would actually do this. But then what I realized was people weren't willing to invest where I wasn't willing to invest. Now I have clients who sign up for all different kinds of packages, and that's because I'm willing to do that as well. Like when I think to the ratio of it now, like this year alone, I've spent over $100,000 on my personal development. And that is because I took the time out to really understand why it's important. I understand the value in it. I understand what I'm creating. I understand what this brings to my world. So what I want you to really ask yourself is, if you're sitting here and you're like, people won't pay that, I want you to ask the question is, who won't pay that? The people who you don't know enough about, or the people who actually don't have a deep enough connection to the thing that you're selling? The people who are deeply invested, who understand the potency of what it is that you're bringing, will be willing to pay for your services. So there's a few pieces that you need to clean up first. A, you need to understand their value, their perceived value within your own offering. Why do they think it's worth so much? Why are they willing to pay for that? What's their emotional connection? Because people will buy with emotion, justify with logic. So if you cannot give them a logical reason, it doesn't matter how emotionally enthralled they are in your work, they still will not buy. So when we're looking at this, it's like, what is the buying that's so big for them that makes it a no-brainer? This is when we start to chip away at the actual true perceived value, right? When people understand what this brings them and what they're able to create from it, you're able to start charging exactly what it is that you desire. If you're not allowing yourself to go deep enough here, you're going to have problems. The reason why most people do not charge what they desire is because A, they haven't gone deep enough into their own work to know what their potency is at, and they're not willing to get curious enough with their clientele. Some of my clients get really frustrated with me because I sit on this question of their avatar for like weeks. And the reason why I do it is because of the long game that we're playing. If you want to get fluffy, if you want to just tap in and just be like, oh yeah, this is what my client does, and just like they feel neglected or they feel lost from themselves, great. But you ain't making money there. There's a lot of people who feel lost and disconnected from themselves. We want to look at the emotional, the tangible, and the physical aspects of their world that are really creating the problem for them. High earning desires allow for a high earning business. And when we allow ourselves to start looking at why aren't my clients paying for my service, it's time to get really curious. Have you sold your service powerfully enough to activate the value for them? I hope this episode landed for you. If you have any questions, please reach out. We are currently enrolling for this round of Embodied Business, and this is all the work that we teach. This week alone, I had a message from one of my clients being like, Case, I just had my first month with $80,000 in sales. This is what we're playing with. This is what we're doing inside this space. And I really want you to know that it is so possible for you to have a business that absolutely expands your world, your client's world, and everyone who gets to be involved from here on in. So happy bloody day, night, evening, whatever it is for you. I'd love to say that it's happy Friday everywhere in the world where it is for me right now, but I'm guessing it's not. However, Have a beautiful afternoon, morning, evening, whatever it is for you. And I cannot wait to see you on the next episode of the Embodied Business Show. Embodied.